What's happening, Potterheads? Today I'll be reviewing Hogwarts Legacy and whether or not I think you should spend your hard-earned golden galleons on it. I'm Coded Snake, by the way, programmer by day, game enthusiast by night. If you appreciate bad jokes and an honest review from someone who loves games as much as you do, then be sure to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss mine in the future. Let's get into it. Jumping into the game, we start with the character customization screen. It's fairly middle of the road in terms of options for a modern day game. It doesn't feature the most robust customization options you can find, but I've also seen games with a lot less, and I was personally happy with it. Plus, I don't want to sit in here staring at my character too long anyways, or I end up feeling like Buffalo Bill in Silence of the Lambs. In the game, you play as a student starting at Hogwarts as a 5th year. They mention this is rare, but they don't really mention why. I think it probably serves a few purposes around the age of the character and what you're allowed to do because of said age. After the introduction of the game, which lays out a ton of exposition and serves as a short tutorial, we meet the headmaster, who, despite sharing a name with a classic Metallica album, is a snooty douche nozzle, a real top-shelf only type of guy.
Rapidly losing whatever patience I had left.
You then get to select your house. The Sorting Hat will recommend a house for you based on a couple of questions which feel really obvious in their correlation to their house, but you can pick whichever house you prefer. After a few more introductions around the school, you eventually get to Hogsmeade Village, where we meet the various merchants around town. These guys offer everything from clothes to plants to furniture, or at Ollivanders we get to pick our wand. Now the wand selection is pretty cool. It lets you fully customize yours from its wood type and its length down to what type of core it has, be it dragon, unicorn, or phoenix. Although for most of the customizable traits, it isn't obvious that they have any practical application, but I think serve more just as some flavor text. Now, let's talk about some of the game's mechanics, starting with combat. I was a little concerned what they would do with the game's combat. I think it would have been easy for the developers to rely on the rest of the game being fun and for the combat to feel very basic and dry, but the game's combat is seriously a blast. It is super fun. It feels almost like the Batman Arkham Knight / old school Assassin's Creed combat, but this time in a new ranged format. You have your basic attacks, and you're often reacting to color-coded dodge or parries coming from enemy attacks. Then you can mix and match your more advanced spells to come up with unique combinations, which have varying effects depending on the enemy type. Each of your spells has an associated type or color, and these are most important when you're attacking certain enemies who can block. When they are blocking, you need to match your spell color to the color of their shield in order to do damage. The combat is pretty fast-paced, and you can build up a combo meter which allows for more special attacks once it's full. Combat options also include plants you can grow or purchase, as well as potions you can brew or purchase. In this footage you can see me using a Thunder Brew potion which kicks up a storm around the player to damage anyone who gets too close. You also have the option of stealth. Stealth plays a role in quests as well, where you sneak around Hogwarts or surrounding areas, but you can sneak into many open-world locations and use it as an alternative to direct combat. Taking a closer look at character customization options, the apparel section is top-notch in Hogwarts. For starters, you don't need to choose between looking stylish or wearing the best gear for once, as you have the option to make whatever you're wearing look like any items you've already unlocked, giving you full freedom to play Barbie dress-up, like the little girl your father always told you you were. Oops, sorry, that was for a different video. Speaking of clothing options, I don't normally care about these challenges that developers often put in open-world games. They usually serve just as achievements, but in the case of Hogwarts, they reward you with either cool new clothes or upgrade options for your gear. Similar to armor systems we've seen in Destiny and Assassin's Creed, each slot of clothing you wear has a gear score associated with it. In this case, each item will affect either your offensive or defensive prowess. Hogwarts has tons of side quests to enjoy at your own pace, and I think a lot of them have been really fun. In one quest, I was tasked with solving a treasure map puzzle which gave me a vague location and a parchment with some drawings, similar to treasure maps from Red Dead Redemption. The game also has a lot of open world content. In one example, I found a simple puzzle to solve which revolved around breaking some vases, but once I did, it unlocked a battle arena where I could fight waves of enemies. Another of the many open world content types are called Merlin Trials. These are short little puzzles which unlock extra inventory space via your challenges. And due to the vast array of spells at your command, the developers were enabled to create many different types of puzzles, which was a pleasant change of pace from puzzles in other games, where the limited number of player tools can often make solving puzzles too easy for a more experienced gamer. The game features a full day and night system, which you can and will have to adjust for certain stories. It also has a seasons system, which I found enjoyable, watching the green trees turn to autumn, and even pumpkins showing up all over the place for Halloween. I'd really like to highlight just how excellent a job the environment developers did here. The map is a beautiful environment to explore in both day, night, and every season. And speaking of enjoying the map, fairly early on in the game you will unlock the ability to ride a broom. I think you'll find this to be a blast, as I did. It's not quite zooming around New York City as Spider-Man, but as far as enjoyable travel goes in video games, I think this is probably the next best thing. Later on, you also unlock beast mounts, which to be honest, I felt were a little lackluster compared to broom flight. I could be mistaken, but they feel slower than the broom and slightly more clunky to maneuver. Because of this, I haven't played around with them as often. There is a fast travel system in the game, which is very thorough in the number of areas it allows as a fast travel point. I'm happy to report, though, that I personally have often skipped the fast travel because of how much fun it is to actually traverse and see the world. One of the things I really appreciate about Hogwarts is the way they've paced introduction to new mechanics. For example, I was already about 15 hours into my casual play of the game when I was introduced to the beast capture mechanic. Beast areas on the map contain a variety of animals that can be captured or rescued from poachers, as the game hilariously spins it, and released into your own little area, which is basically a beast zoo. Once you have the beasts, you can groom and feed them, after which they drop their resource item, which comes into play with your equipment. You can craft upgrades to certain gear items through these resources, which will give you offensive or defensive buffs. As I've mentioned earlier, there are potions and plants which help you in combat, and these can be grown and brewed on your own once you've purchased the seeds or potion recipe. This is kind of a cool mechanic, but the potion brewing feels like a small lost opportunity. It could have been a cool minigame to brew your potion, like the one in Kingdom Come: Deliverance, where you have to follow the instructions to not mess up the recipe, but instead it's relegated to a simple timer, as is the gardening portion. Another missed opportunity for Hogwarts is the unique game of Quidditch, which is sadly missing from the game. I'd be surprised if we don't get this either in DLC or perhaps even as a standalone game. And there is demand for it, and in my opinion, a game like Quidditch has the potential to do extremely well in the market if it's well executed. Similar to how Rocket League, whilst being an idea out of left field, has also had outstanding commercial success. I'm happy to report I found very few bugs, and the ones I have found are very minor. The biggest of which is this audio bug where when a new quest is introduced via owl delivery, it comes in very quiet relative to the other audio. Less of a bug and more of something that just needed more time in development. In the graphical effects department, I found rain to be very underwhelming. Like, look at this. If you look very closely, you can tell it is raining, but as soon as you stop paying attention to the small details, it's practically a hidden feature. And for the character animations, when you're going down stairs that are too big, you get this comical animation where instead of looking natural, it just looks like you really have to go to the bathroom. All in all, I am exceedingly impressed with Hogwarts. I'm rating Hogwarts Legacy a super solid 9 out of 10. With an IP this big, they could have gotten by on a lot of sales with the name alone, and yet, despite it being early in the year with many games to go, I'd be surprised if this game isn't at least a nominee for a few Game of the Year awards. Well, that concludes my review, guys. Leave a comment down below if you already know what house you want to play as. And if you enjoyed this review, be sure to subscribe for future videos from me.